to you live from channel 407 News. And today we're going to be discussing a case brought to us by Dr. Urena from the Evans Project. And before we get into that, the Evans Project works with at-risk adolescents by involving them in the positive programs to assist them becoming successful members of their communities. But one of the main focus of the Evans Project is a diversion program, and that is to keep the youth from falling into the juvenile system. And what that diversion program does is allows a youth with one offense to be a part of the diversion program, complete their sanctions in exchange for them not having to go to the court or to jail. The following content is based on the plan change model pertaining to this micro case study. And now we're going live to Rose, who is out there in the field. Rose? Thank you, Rose. And even though I'm here in New York, I've been following this case for a very long time. Now, the state attorney referred to us, Todd Smith, to the diversion program. At first, Todd Smith was very resistant because, again, he was not here by choice. So at first, when he was sat down with Dr. Urena tried to get him to talk. At first, he was very resistant. So she just stood there in silence with Todd Smith, and eventually he broke that silence. Because at the end of the day, a kid cannot sit in silence for that long. It's very uncomfortable. Now, one of the problems identified with Todd Smith is the abandonment, where his father abandoned his mother while she was pregnant with him. Another issue is the new family system, and what I mean by that is, now the mother has a girlfriend who now lives in the household, and that may not be the issue. The actual issue with that is that the mom never actually sat down with Todd and explained to him the new change in the household. Another issue is the anger, where he keeps acting up in school, obviously now for getting arrested. But the thing is, I think Dr. Urena didn't really focus too much on the anger, because the anger is just part of the content, with, along with the process and content. And anger is just the content. The process, everything, all the other underlying issues that are going on that lead up to that anger. And as for the data collection, through the interviewing process, Dr. Urena was able to collect information on the family history, the environment which Todd Smith has been brought up in, and his ethnicity. And that pretty much wraps up the first part of the plan change model. And now back to you, Rosemary. Interesting stuff, Rose. Sounds like you're learning a lot out there. Yeah. Wow, that's great. That sounds like a placement that I would recommend to any BSW student. Thank you, Rose. And now, it is our pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Urena, who will be covering the rest of the plan change model. Thank you, Rosemary. Well, thank you again, Rose and Rosemary. That was a great analysis of the case, and now it's my pleasure to take over from here. Now, with the contracting process, it's a contract that it's a working agreement between the client and the worker, which is myself. And pretty much what it is that we sit down and come up with plans of things that he is going to do, but we come up with these plans together. And one of the ones, which is a big one, was communication, because there was a lack of communication between him and his mother. And I felt like that was very important. And, he said that he does want to work on that a little bit, because they hardly ever talk, and he found that a bit weird. So definitely that was one of them. The next thing that he agreed on to doing is 2 hours community service, because that's part of the sanctions that he has to do in order to pass the diversion program successfully. There were many skills used within the implementation process. The skills are as follow: the process skills, conceptualization skills, and the personalization skills. The process skills was demonstrated by using reflection and probing questions. I did this because I wanted Todd to say what he really felt, what was really on his mind. The conceptualization skills was utilized by identifying themes within Todd's messages and selecting strategies that correspond to his goals. Now, last but not least, the personalization skills, which deals with the personal growth of the worker and hearing the challenges that the client expresses without becoming defensive towards the client. Now, a perfect example of that would be when Todd was sitting before me and expressing his disgust towards his mom and his girlfriend. He felt that the whole lesbian thing was, in his words, disgusting. Now, me being a lesbian woman myself, to me, I knew this was about him. It had nothing to do with me. And I knew that I had to separate that line. And at no point there I was offended by his expression because what he felt was real. Now, the direct observations, what was used during the evaluation process. Now, during this process, many of the things that me and Todd came up with, he did not complete. Now, he wanted to join extracurricular activities, but then he said that no, all of a sudden he does not like sports. I knew that was a lie because there were times during our session where we would drift away from the subject and we'll talk about sports. And he would get very excited about it, and I'll have to bring him back to our point of the session. So I knew there was more to it than just that. Along with that, he said that he tried communicating with his mother, and as far as it would go, is probably 2 sentences and it just becomes another fight. According to him, his mom dismisses him, doesn't validate him, and feels like he's a kid. He should go school, home, to the room, do chores, and that's it. He shouldn't have a say what's going on in the household. And the only thing that he probably did successfully there, he did successfully, in fact, was the community service. But with that being said, again, the diversion program, you're not allowed to pick up another offense while you're in the program. Unfortunately, Todd, who was doing so well one week and then another week not well, was back and forth, was very inconsistent. He decided to go to Walmart and rob a woman. He got arrested in Lake County. And once you get arrested and get another offense, we have to close you out unsuccessfully, which is, never a good thing to do. And now he's just another statistic in the juvenile system. Wow, Dr. Urena, that really is heartbreaking, honestly. Now, Dr. Urena, now theories. I know it plays a huge role in social work. And those of you who don't know, don't follow, a theory is a set of ideas that helps to explain why something happened in a particular way. They're based on evidence and reasoning. Now, Dr. Urena, in your expert opinion, what theories do you think were at play in this specific micro case study? Yes, and thank you, Rosemary, for bringing that up. Theories is definitely very important in social work. One of the theories that was at play during this specific case was the cognitive theory. And this pretty much explains the human behavior by understanding the thought process. The assumption is that humans are logical beings that make choices that make sense to them. Now, there are a couple of stages that fall into it where you have the concrete operational stage or the formal operational stage. And the formal operational stage is from 12 to adulthood. And this is where children begin to consider possible outcomes and consequences versus earlier stages where children use trial and error. Well, I feel that Todd is not at this formal operational stage, and that is the stage where he should be. Now, another theory that was at play, which is well known, is Erikson's psychosocial theory. Now, this theory is useful for self-awareness and dealing with conflicts. It helps to analyze the personality and behavior of an individual. Now, the reason why this theory was at play was because it reminded me of the psychosocial crisis stage, which was identity versus role confusion. I felt that he is at this stage facing difficulties, and because in a few years, Todd has to transition from adolescent to adults. And so it's very crucial that we help himself resolve any identity issues and reevaluate the direction that he's headed versus the direction that he actually wants to head towards. Todd has been dealing with a lot since being a kid, and he hasn't really dealt with them. His father abandoning him before he was even born. His mother having a girlfriend and bringing her to the household and never having that talk with Todd, never allowing him to have a say whatsoever. And all this has turned into him being angry and keeping all his emotions inside and acting up in school, vandalizing. But it seemed like at the end Todd was going to do what Todd was going to do. And in the end I had to close him out unsuccessfully. And there's something that have always stayed with me that I've learned years ago at UCF, where many professors, including Professor Manning, have told me that when you tried your best with your client, you know that you did. And the client you have to close out successfully, that's nothing that you take home with you because you know you tried your best. And that's what I honestly did with Todd. Thank you, Rosemary, once again for having me. Well, thank you, Dr. Urena. It's always a pleasure having you at our show. Now tune in next week where we'll have Academy Award winner Jen Ackerman come and share her unique story, how she went from UCF to Hollywood. And like Jen Ackerman's mother would say, let go and let God, Orlando. Good night.